What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now we're going to continue into the final episode of this kind of department of positional reviews, continuing on from my pricing mistakes video, and this video is going to be all about the forwards. So the strikers and the midfielders that have become forwards this season, such as a Jota and then also an Mbumo, it's going to be quite interesting to see the comparisons between these options and see which options you guys should be picking. Now I know that most of us only have one forward in our team. It's probably going to be Haaland. I'm not going to compare him in this comparison as it's been done before, but it will be quite interesting to see how the Norwegians' performances increase from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. But hopefully by the conclusion of this video, you guys pick a forward, maybe one or two or three, whatever the formation you guys want to kind of look at, that's going to fulfill the needs and get you some FPL points. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. The first thing is a little bit of an exciting announcement. I've finally launched a Discord channel, and this is going to be a channel for my entire community. Why I'm saying that is that I know that some people have kind of paid Discords. This is going to be a combination of both of them. There's obviously going to be some free elements such as Q&As. Just think of almost like a Twitter space where I kind of join a channel. You guys can ask me questions, maybe a one question go sort of thing. But then obviously also have the membership channels, which will be kind of an incentive to become a member of this YouTube channel. So right now we do have the supporters and the legends. There's going to be kind of places, voice channels, chat channels for both of those two distinctions. And what that membership will get you is kind of one-on-one sessions where we talk about your own team on a more personal level. Maybe you guys give me some insights. Maybe I can give you some opinions on what I think you can do with your own team. And then obviously my team reveals will also be on those channels. So the link is going to be the first one in the description. Join it if you guys want to wait a few weeks, maybe gather the hype for the upcoming game week 1, let it simmer a bit, 100%. But I'm excited about the new season, so if you guys are as well, you can join me and we can discuss FPL over on Discord. If you guys have any feedback on the server, you can also drop that in my DMs on Twitter or just message me on the Discord or on YouTube, as I am always looking for ways to improve the Discord server. So the first graphic that I'm going to show on screen is going to be the same as the video where I spoke about the pricing mistakes. I've just kind of color coded it to the colors I've followed throughout these kind of positional reviews, and that's going to be the graph that you see on screen right now. So the graph on screen right now is going to detail the points they scored last season versus the price this season. Then I've added a linear regression line to average this that I'll talk about later on. So when comparing these forwards, unfortunately the forwards last season was simply terrible. I know Harry Kane kind of rebounded. Vardy looked quite strong in the last couple of weeks. We had some cheap options like an Ivan Toney that looked pretty strong. And Toney had a massive start to last season but then kind of dipped off. So overall, not too great, but not the worst. But when comparing these forwards, I wanted to kind of show you guys the linear regression line from the midfielders to just show you from a comparison point of view how these players performed. So keep in mind, right now it looks like Harry Kane is underpriced. He looks like a good performer here, but now watch what happens when you shift the linear regression line. So as you guys can see on screen right now, the midfielder regression line shifts this graph completely to the left, and now Harry Kane is actually overpriced. The only players that come in underpriced are Jota and Mbumo, but just remember that these were midfielders who got an extra point per goal and also an extra clean sheet point. So when probably taking these points into account, you would drop them below the line, and therefore the only underpriced options compared to the midfielders are going to be Toney and then also Antonio. So a little bit of an interesting insight there when we compare these. You can't really compare them to the forwards only, but when we're comparing them to the midfielders, it's a completely different picture, and we actually see a lot of these options are overpriced. But saying that though, I mean, Harry Kane had a great end to last season. He could start this season the same, good form, have a great season, and that's what I'll kind of show you in the next insight. So definitely Harry Kane's the most popular forward to go for besides maybe a Toney and a Haaland, and I want to compare his previous performances versus this year's. So on screen right now you guys can see Harry Kane's 3-year performances from 2022, 16 to 17 and 17 to 18, as these were the top 3 performances that I could note. So when comparing these performances, he's either underpriced or on the money in a 17/18, and that's quite a nice thing to see when we do compare these midfielders to forwards, and if Harry Kane improves his points. The reason I kind of want to show you this is that I think a lot of people are looking at last season, seeing his kind of performance was not that great, automatically picking Heung-min Son because he was on form, but wanted to show you guys is that Harry Kane has the potential to score a lot of points, even comparable to those premium midfielders. But nevertheless, with the amount of forwards that we have on screen right now, not much to talk about. So pause the screen if you want right now, maybe pick out a few options that you're currently looking at, but now let's get on to the next metric. So the next metric that we're going to talk about is going to be points per 90 minutes, and to be honest, this is my favorite kind of chart to go over, my metric to go over, because it kind of normalizes the minutes and the points. So from left to right, worst to best, we can see that Jota and Vardy have a very similar points per minutes played, and that's quite nice to see. Jota obviously becoming a forward this season, a lot of people aren't really looking at him as a Liverpool asset, but if he does play the majority of minutes in that Liverpool front three, he's still great value for money. Similar thing with Jamie Vardy, we spoke about Maddison in the prior video, good value for money there. Leicester don't have European football. I think Jamie Vardy should get most games if they play weekly, and therefore I think the English striker might still be good value for money. We then have Ronaldo, who's going to be leaving United, might be joining Chelsea, who kind of knows. Gabriel Jesus, even though he did play for Man City, had some good chances there. If you do compare his per 90-minute stats, how's that going to kind of correlate to Arsenal, where he will be starting every game probably? Firmino's an interesting one there. Most people say that he's a super overpriced, but you can still see per 90-minute stats are looking quite strong, and you also see Iheanacho and Havertz on either side. Harry Kane comes in above average here, but when you do consider his price, not really where he wants to be, I don't think he should be comparable to kind of a Welbeck or a Daka, or even a Danny Ings slightly below. An interesting thing to note is that Tony and Antonio, these players start basically every game, so their points per 90 minutes isn't that strong, and therefore you have to also compare that if you want a nailed option in that forward department. But conclusions from this is that unfortunately with Jota and Vardy at their price points, I don't think many people will be going for them, but they still do provide some good points per game. But other than that, I can't really highlight too many other assets. We're now going to go on to the next graph, which provides the value, which is going to be the points per million or points per price. And as you guys can see on the top right hand side, we have the duo of Mbeumo and Tony from Brentford up front. Now between these two, I probably prefer Ivan Toney because he's on penalties, but Mbeumo still provides some good value for money at that 6.0 price tag. I've seen some people wondering about which 6.0 to go for. They've kind of gone for a big at the back formation or stacked midfield. They need another cheap forward. Mbeumo could be your man to go for. Jota and Tony are providing some good value for money here, that's nice to see, but please remember that Jota has an inflated points because obviously with that extra point per goal and that extra clean sheet point that Liverpool kept a whole lot of. Nice to see another cheap alternative. Watkins here at 7.5 could be a nice option. Under Stevie G, they might be more attacking, he might get more chances to score. I just wish his conversion rate goes up because he's not the best finisher in the world. Harry Kane provides some good value for money, to be honest, compared with these forwards, but just remember in that pricing mistakes video that the top 3 forwards were still the bottom 3 out of all the positions. On the bottom left, we have some overrated options, I would say. We have Firmino, Calvert-Lewin, and Timo Werner. Calvert-Lewin is probably the surprise this season, was still priced at a pretty respectable 8.5 or 8, I think, and I definitely don't think he's going to be worth that unless Everton improve dramatically from an attacking point of view. Now the last graph to kind of go over is going to be the value per 90 minutes here, and what this graph is value is obviously points per million or points per price. Then I've divided that by 90 minutes or per game to give me a metric that if these options did start, how many points would they actually get? And as you guys can see, there's some usual suspects here, and Edouard and Daka. These two assets don't really start the many games, but when they do start, they usually get you some returns, so that's also nice to see along with Iheanacho and Mateta. The interesting thing about the top 4 is that it's 2 Leicester attackers and then also 2 Crystal Palace attackers. So if one of these 2 options does become nailed in that starting 11, they could be great value for money. Danny Welbeck comes in 5th place, and if you guys do remember last season, ended the season as one of the best players to own as he simply was scoring on sight. So maybe if he starts for Brighton, that could be a pretty nice forward to have, but I think right now, I think most people will be going for one premium, maybe one cheaper one. In the middle of the park there, we have a lot of options there. Jota yet again coming in. We have Gabriel Jesus, going to be interesting to see how he plays. Then we also have a player that I own, Che Adams, quite a lot, and I think if he starts for Southampton, he still could get you some respectable points. But to kind of conclude this video, guys, I do think that Harry Kane, if he manages to improve his performances, replicate some of the prior season's performances and total points, I think that he's the option to kind of own. But other than that, I think that Ivan Toney and Mbeumo look quite strong. And then as you guys can see, if one of these 2 options at the top start, they could also get you some points. But this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. But otherwise, I'll see you guys on my Twitter page or on my Discord. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.